This season, as I've been interviewing women founders, leaders, and experts on the Island Woman podcast, I've also been harnessing an arsenal of conversation experiences to fuel my big and simple life. I've been absorbing the energy and wisdom of these women working day in and day out to pursue things that often feel far bigger than themselves, but doing it anyway. And that is the kind of energy I want to feed myself and to bring to any room I'm in as a Caribbean island woman. By extension, this season, I've also been tackling the question, how can women in the Caribbean women like me, how can we maximize our economic impact and sustain our well-being? In my estimation, those two things will help to catapult the region completely out of poverty and out of the non-communicable disease trap. Why? We know that as women's earnings rose over a decade, starting from the year 2000, they contributed to a 30% reduction in poverty in Latin America and here in the Caribbean. And secondly, we know that women are more afflicted with non-communicable diseases in our societies than men. So in today's episode, I'm taking a look back and sharing a few special moments from my conversations this season that focus on that economic potential part of this question. Do you aspire to an uncomplicated and fulfilling way of life? I'm Diane Squires, aka Deanne. That's what all my friends call me. I'm an island woman living on the island of Barbados and walking my path to a big and simple life. Walk with me and learn with me. Welcome to the Island Woman podcast. The first moment is a reminder of why, as women, we should never underestimate our leadership role, no matter what job title we hold. Here's a segment from a conversation with cultural strategist and founder of the lifestyle brand Okoye by Kim Butcher.
When women have financial autonomy, they can change the world. And we do it every single day, whether we are the breadwinner or we are the person managing the breadwinner. We are the neck all the time. You can't do anything without your neck. And I'm seeing every day young women and mature women making real changes in significant ways that we ignore all the time. And they influence in ways that we don't, again, always recognize because we see the man as the CEO or the CFO or the head of the household, or but there is always a secretary, a girl Friday, a senior manager, a director who's a woman who's making a lot of decisions. We are very instrumental in changing a lot of things that are happening, especially in the Caribbean. I'm going into a lot of rooms now where women are dominating the space. And because they're dominating the space, there's more compassion when we think about things like climate change, when we think about sustainability, when we think about resilience, all of those buzzwords. Women are behind those stories and pushing that agenda.
Next is an incredibly useful way to think about women and economic empowerment in the Caribbean. It's really not just about women at all. It is about an entire productive population actively working towards total development. This is an idea that Anuskha Varsha Sonai, president of Creative Tech Hub and the America Chamber of Commerce, Suriname, articulated convincingly. Do you think women here in the Caribbean are especially important to shaping that future of the region that you envision? And if so, why?
First of all, I think men and women are both needed. The men are needed because all sectors have been male dominated for quite a long time, for centuries. What's important from that is the experience. But when you look at the numbers, I think we had a discussion some other time where you saw that if women are developed more like there is more progress in the region. When you look at the Caribbean, and I always use the hashtag Better Futures for in the Caribbean, because all of our countries are struggling with brain drain or people leaving the countries and going abroad to find a better
Yes.
life. And that started on a personal level when my family was leaving, and I was like, "You're living abroad, but you're always each activity or the Christmas or Diwali or whatever, you will be like, oh, I wish I was in Suriname. I wish I was in
Yes.
Trinidad. I wish. But then why do you leave? And the answer is always for better futures. So why not create those better futures here in the Caribbean? So the Caribbean should become the place that retains talent, that is a hub for innovation and digital transformation in the sense of where we have digital first industries and international investment, but also a place where women and youth scale their business. They're not just part of a program. And that is what you see a lot nowadays, that women are portrayed as this fragile that needs the support or needs to become resilient, which is not adding to the real economic value as it's being measured, which also gives metrics which are not fitting our reality. The work that women do is not just inspirational, because that's how it's always said, oh, look how inspiring, but it is what more structured, and there is a strategy behind it.
Yes.
So that is why you will see the numbers that for the last past years, I think with the development of women, we have 30% less of poverty. I looked that up, and that is because women bring a lot of structure, determination, economic opportunity for a bigger group than just for her own business, her own community, but it's for a larger, let's say, a larger community, Caribbean community. So I think that is really important, and why that is the most important reason. And also, if
Yes.
you want to develop a region, you cannot do it with just half the population. You should do it with 100%. So men and women. I'm
Yes.
not against each of the developments. I'm for more economic prosperity here in the Caribbean, for better futures.
In episode 3, social development specialist and founder of Kainos Caribbean Consulting, Karen Phillip, argues the case for better overall compensation packages for women working in the development sector. Why? Because of the high level of invisible labor their work often demands.
There is an agency out of the States called Candid, and they do research. And when they do their research, they can tell you that the men in civil society are making the majority of the money, and the women are not. And the men are responsible for the bigger organizations than the women. So there's a disparity in it. And I mean, we don't have that research for the Caribbean, unfortunately.
Yes.
And then on my podcast, I spoke to Dr. Shari Lynn Hale, and she was also talking about how the Black women are often responsible for carrying the NGOs, and they're expected
Absolutely.
to carry it for free or for less than, and that it's unfair. I was speaking to one of my friends, and she's helping run an NGO in St. Vincent, and we know what's happening in America with cutting of things. So now she has 3 jobs just trying to make sure that her bills are paid. And it's not because you could have 3 casual jobs. Like, you do one thing casually, whatever, but she's literally managing an organization long distance and also just trying to put food on her table still. And I feel like there's a need to challenge a bit the way that we do things in the sector. Donors have moved from program, which is funding an entire, say, gender or economic development, to saying that we're going to fund a project. So therefore, I
Yeah.
cannot pay for somebody's full salary because they're only doing 3 days a week on this project. But we need to value the invisible labor, because even if it is that they're doing 3 days or supposedly assigning 3 days to this project, what about the emotional care when they're dealing with these beneficiaries? What about building the trust in the communities when they're going in. And that doesn't necessarily take 2 minutes. That takes going in and sitting down and understanding the needs. And then also what is overtime for those on the ground. You may have overtime when you go further up in the technocrat or in the development sector and you're in your office and you whatever, but a large part of the persons who are actually implementing policies on ground, who are actually working on the ground, don't have a concept of what overtime is because they end up giving everything. It needs to be formalized and it needs to be valued. And then also going back to rewarding them and not just rewarding them with financial as well, but yes, but investing in them. So going back to the capacity building, because I'm a lifelong learner and I believe that other persons as well should have the opportunity and have these spaces to increase their skills.
And finally, a discussion about the proven benefits of women in leadership and encouraging more women to step into leadership roles. With Global Ambassador for Race to Zero and Race to Resilience, and the CEO of the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, Racquel Moses. We talk about the role her podcast, Getting to the Top, plays in urging women to get off the sticky floor of lower and middle level leadership to aim straight for the top.
I never say that it is a podcast of women or a women's podcast, but it is just conversations with transformational leaders about their journey to the C-suite or to the top of their organizations. And I think it is so important because when people talk about gender equality, they think about it as though it is something that is fair for women, and that's the reason that we should do it. And I think that that is a valid point as to why we should focus on gender equality, but that's not my purpose. All of the data points to the fact that when you have more empowered women, more women in leadership, more diverse leadership teams, you have better outcomes. It is no longer an opinion, it is a statement of fact. When you have more diverse boards, when you have more diverse organizations, and you see a lot of times, or an organization gets into trouble, and it doesn't even have to be a Me Too moment. Then they run out and find the women. And this podcast for me started from a conversation that I had the last event I attended going into COVID. And it was a Women's Day, International Women's Day event. And we were talking about the fact that, you're not seeing the gender equity on boards. And a few of the women at my table serve on boards. And they say, it's always, oh, we don't know any women. And one of the women, she serves on many different boards. She's amazing. And I'm still trying to tie her down to a date for our podcast, believe it or not, since 2020. But she said, anytime they come to me with that, I have a list of women that I know that I say, you can ask this one, this one, this one, this one. And I said, same for me. I always say, you're not going to ask a man for a list of women and find it. You have to ask other women in a similar position, and she will know her peers. So we started compiling a list of women that we thought would be excellent to serve on boards. And then we were thinking we'd have this list, and when anybody asked, we'd say, here's a list of women who would be excellent candidates for your board. And we did start to do that. And then I just started to think, you know what? Let me interview these women. Let me interview these women and have a conversation, learn about how they became these exceptional transformational leaders. And so tell their stories so that other women can see. It is not because they didn't make any mistakes. It is not because they had a perfect plan. Many of them had to be dragged into leadership because they didn't see it in themselves.
Yes.
But it's so important to get these stories out, to see, to make these women more visible so that others will follow suit.
Yeah. And Getting to the Top, why did you settle on that title?
Because I wanted more women to be ambitious about their careers. They talk a lot about the glass ceiling, which is absolutely real, but there's also the sticky floor. A lot of women, when you look at percentages of women in organizations, you see a lot of women at the bottom. You also see a lot of women in the middle as managers, and then at the top suddenly there's this absence. So I want women to get off of that sticky floor and realize there are other levels that they must travel. And those who are able to get to the top, I want them to aspire to that leadership, because it's the first thing you have to want it. And then once you want it, to help share some of the strategies for getting there.
Right? That's it for now. If you've enjoyed those episode snippets, check out the full episodes. Links are in the show notes and in the YouTube description box. And if you've made it to the end of this episode with me, thank you so, so much for taking the time. If you liked it, share it with a friend or leave a comment or do both. Also, leave us a comment or a review on your podcast channel of choice. If you watched this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. This has been episode 9, season 3 of the Island Woman podcast. I'm your Island Woman, Diane Squires, aka Deanne. Until next time, peace.